Hi, everyone. I am so excited to present this episode of Coffee with Colleagues. It's with a dear friend, trusted colleague. This guy is just amazing. You're going to get a ton of stuff out of this. I think it's a success if you can just get one or two nuggets of some of these presentations and take something away in your personal life. The challenge with this one, there's so many nuggets this guy drops of truth, of information, of heartfelt advice. You're going to have a hard time choosing just one or two. Enjoy. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Coffee with Colleagues. I am honored today and feel really, really special that this gentleman has said yes to come and join and say hello to you guys. He's a trusted colleague, someone who I really admire and look up to. He's an industry leader within the hospitality world and certainly within Conference Direct as a team leader. His name is Doug Baarman. Doug, welcome to Coffee with Colleagues.
It's good to be here. Thank you. I had to
Yeah,
give up
man.
coffee for a little while, so I'm doing water now, man. So I'm giving up
That's
caffeine for a
fair.
little
You're making a pitch for a brand change here. We'll call it Water with Colleagues from here on out.
bit. Only for
Um,
30 days, man. Only for 30 days. I'll be back
Fair
to my
enough.
coffee soon.
Well, you should have told me. We would have postponed this and we do a conversation in 30 days. It would have been, we could have kept the brand intact there.
We're good, man. It's coffee with you, man. I got it.
Fair enough. Listen, Doug, I appreciate you taking the time. I know you pretty well through all of our interactions and our meetings. We run around with each other. We catch up often on the phone. Tell everyone who's listening who Doug Baarman is. What makes it tick? And I say that we'll get into your professional career, but just talk a little bit about who you are as a person and again, what makes it tick.
That's an interesting question. I feel like, and I always describe myself, I feel like I'm a pretty simple guy. I think, what you see is what you get. I think I've always been that way. Maybe it's my Midwest background growing up in Michigan and everything, but I feel like it's the things that are important to me. What makes me tick are pretty simple. It's faith, family, friends. I think, we're going to talk business, but that comes below all of that. I think those are the important things to me. Unfortunately, we spend the majority of the time in our professional lives, even though, we've got other things that are key and important to us. But, that's, my biggest pride is my wife and my two daughters who, are now out of college and young ladies, one out of the house, one still here. But, it's now it's living through and excited for my family and my kids and kind of what's going
Yeah.
on. And I think both my professional and my personal kind of big why and what my purpose is. I get motivated by that whole kind of quote, you are a true success when you help, others be successful. So if that's helping my daughters get through college, if it's helping, my clients, everything, it's just, I've always kind of defined myself by that. I've enjoyed that. And I think it's because I grew up in team sports. I wasn't an individual sports guy. It was like we all had to work together. We were all in it together. I had some great coaches that would preach that, and I think that's always been kind of my who I am and how I function both professionally and in my social life, which you got to have fun in life too. So hopefully we'll have a few laughs during our coffee chat here.
I'm sure we will. Listen, I hear you talk about sports, and I can point back to so many lessons I learned just in that sports dynamic that, I could succeed individually, but if everyone else around me is not succeeding, if we're not getting the win collectively at the end of the day, it's really not worth it. And as you say that, it really speaks to me and it tells me a lot about you too. I mean, you've always been one, just like you started off the chat, what you see is what you get. I've always admired that about you, and I think that your ability to project that in everything you do, you're real, you're genuine. And one of our colleagues, Brian Ritchie, actually the founder of Conference Direct, talks all the time about you do business with people who you like and who you trust.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I could think of no better likable or trustable person than Doug Baarman. So that's actually a great way to kind of talk about. Actually, that leads to another question though. Talk about when you think of your brand in business as your personal brand. What are some of the trademarks that you aim for? That you know that when people think of Doug and you not only as a person but as a business person, what do you aim for as you do business?
I think your personal brand is really important. I think we're learning that more than ever now. I mean, certainly in the world you and I live in as independents, you need to establish that personal brand. Although I would argue, already our first point that we talked about, we're independent, we're individuals, but we are playing a team sport. It takes multiple people to make our clients happy, to allow them and enable them to achieve their success. So, I think you have to establish that personal brand. I challenge myself and my team to have your personal brand standards, have those things you're going to do. But I see myself personally, to my team, to my clients, as their guide. I'm kind of that trusted advisor consultant. I'm going to guide them. If you're thinking about a movie, I'm not the hero in the movie. I'm the guide helping my client be the hero, or I'm the guide helping my team member be the hero. So it's funny because I've always someone that more enjoys being behind the scenes and doing that. Although I meet people all the time and they're like, you're super outgoing. It's like I want to be in the front. I don't really. I get more
Yeah.
enjoyment, more thrill when I see my team members be successful, or when I see my clients achieve their success. That makes me tremendously happy. So, I see myself as more of a leader, coach, mentor, and guiding people on this journey that they're on.
That's fantastic. I think that you hit on it in your earlier comment here of how when you're making other people successful, you find success yourself. And
Correct.
let's face it, in the last year where business has really shut down, there hasn't been a lot of getting on our side from from either a revenue standpoint or a business standpoint. Business
Yeah.
has shut down quite a bit. I have found such a fulfillment in looking for ways I can give to other people and establishing and investing in relationships. And I'm thrilled to hear you say that, because I think we're kindred spirits in that way. How you want to see other people succeed. I love that look, you're a team leader. That's part of your obligation. You're not a boss per se, because we're all independent contractors here.
Correct.
But to be able to be a cheerleader and to contribute to other people's success, I think is super noble, and I think it says a lot about you that you think that way.
Well, as you
Um,
know, Jeremy, we can't tell people what to do. We have to inspire them to do it, right? Here's
Absolutely.
where you should go, and here's why you should go there. And again, I've always enjoyed that. Go back to sports. Your football coach or whatever taught me, here's how we're going to win the game. We got to do this, this, and this. You spend a week preparing and all that, but they didn't tell you have to do this, you have to do that. They put the end goal in mind, and then okay, here's how we're going to get there, and then we work towards it. And it's the same in our world. We got to inspire ourselves. We got to inspire our team, especially what you described. We're in a terrible time, but we're going to get through this. But you got to stay
yeah.
positive and work your way through this right now.
How do you do that then? How do you stay positive and work your way through that? I mean, and I guess the question can apply to normal days where, we're not facing an economic turndown and a slowdown of our industry. Like, are there principles in good times and in bad that you strive for, I guess, or that you live your life by, that helps you keep motivated?
Well, I think the important thing I touched on a little bit. You got to go back to your big why. What's your purpose? Why are you doing this? Right? I mean, we're not just getting up, you and I, in this world that we now live in. We're more entrepreneurials. We wanted to be in business for ourselves. All that kind of stuff. And you got to remember your purpose. There's something that's driving you. It's your family. It's your kids. It's you know you want a cool life down the road, living on a beach or what, there's always something that motivates you. And, for me, that hasn't changed. As I told you, I grew up in Michigan. I went to a university many haven't heard of called Ferris State University. It's a little bit of a smaller university in Michigan. Michigan's got so many big ones. I wanted to play football in college, and I wasn't big enough and fast enough to be, one of these major schools like Michigan State. So I went to this place that had a hospitality program. I could pursue Division II football. So I have always been proud of where I came from, and that university. I don't have some big diploma that everyone's heard of, but I'm very proud of where I came from. And one of my big whys is I want to give back to that place. It did a lot
Nice.
for me. So I had set up a scholarship fund there. The state of Michigan got really interesting. Long story, I'll keep short, but there was money given, overpayments by universities to the state. So the state paid the universities back. And my university actually said, we're taking the millions we got back and we're going to match anything that anyone donates. So, they set up these funds, and so whatever I donated automatically doubled. So I have a fund that helps people in hospitality school back at my university. But as you said, our income has slowed to none. So this year I wasn't able to contribute to that. So I was giving time. These poor students
Yeah.
in the university right now, they got nowhere to go. There's no internships, they're not jobs. So, I've been volunteering to be on Zoom classes, to be a speaker, to help
Yeah.
them understand how to navigate. So, yeah, I think you mentioned it first. I mean, it's all about in this time, how do we give back to others? How do we help others? Even these
Yeah.
conversations you're having right now, you're helping others by taking the time to do this, Jeremy. So kudos to you. And that's what we need to do right now. We all got to lift each other up, especially with all the madness we're seeing going on right now. So, I think this is a
Yeah.
great way to do it.
I appreciate that you saying that. I think sometimes we often think of currency and we think of money, right? And we lose the fact that time is currency, that knowledge is currency, that relationships are currency. You might put some money in a bank, and even with let's go with the analogy of money. You put some money in a savings account or a trust account or stocks. It builds over time. You see the returns over time, and I think in an instant gratification world, we're often looking to invest and get immediate return for whatever we do, whether that be business wise or personal wise. And sometimes it's that slow, steady build of planting seeds and investing your time in a relationship that might not have any payoff now. It might not have any benefit to you now, but there's value in just investing in the first place. And who knows where that thing will grow to, where that relationship could grow, how you might impact somebody else in your life. I can think back to stories, Doug, and as you talk about your times in college, I have a very similar story. I came from a very small school, but I remember specific people at that school that literally shifted my mindset, shifted my goals, my visions for life, and
Yeah.
put my life on a different course.
Yeah.
And that person might not even recognize the impact they had. And I hope in some small way, just in conversations like this, and it sounds like you're on the same plan, the impact we can make by leaving stuff behind, investing our time. We can't, those people never gave me anything financially. They gave me
Yeah.
their time, they gave me their knowledge, they invested in a relationship with me that paid
Right.
forth and just, making my life richer. And I think that's something that as you talk about that, it brings that to mind. That's
That's a great example
investing
you're
your.
sharing. That's a great example. I love it.
Tell me how you're. I guess let's go back a little bit. You're very successful with Conference Direct, not only in building your own book of business, but in building a team around you and adding people to the team that have found success with Conference Direct too. Which, by the way, for those listening, Conference Direct, we are a full meetings resource company. We help people plan their meetings from start to finish. We usually find the hotel, negotiate contracts, saving our clients time and money in that process. And both Doug and I come from a hospitality or a hotel background, so we use that expertise on behalf of our clients. So that was kind of a 2-second for anyone listening who is not familiar with CD. Now you know what we do. But anyway, Doug, tell me about your path from the hotel world into Conference Direct. What really made you want to be an entrepreneur and kind of start your own thing within CD, and how have you built your business up since then?
Yeah, I guess I'll have to go back a little bit. I am one of those rare ones that actually has a hospitality degree. So there's not many. A lot of people fall into this. I actually
That was
knew
me.
that
I fell into it. So yeah.
well, most do, most do. So I knew I wanted to do it. I actually was lucky. I had a cousin that was in it and was in sales and marketing, so I knew I wanted to do it. So I had a great career with Marriott, 20 years, all sales and marketing. I didn't venture into operations, had no interest in any of that. And I was very fortunate. I was involved in lots of things that I would call intrapreneurial, right? They were entrepreneurial, but they were under the flag of a major corporation. You always had a safety net, but Marriott was starting, new sales organizations, all these things, and I had opportunities to join those and be a leader within those. At one point in time, I actually even left the hotel side of things and was the excuse me the vice president of sales and marketing of ExecuStay, which was a corporate housing provider. So Marriott had acquired the brand. I got to go over there, lead a full commission sales team at that time. I then came back and we built a commission sales team within the global sales organization of
Okay.
Marriott. So I got to do a very kind of, you know, new idea, a new concept within a global sales organization. So so I guess I was fortunate, Jeremy. I was kind of set up I started to learn and know, hey, I want to do this on my own. I want to be on my own. Nothing against working for a major corporation. It's great for many people and it was great for me. I just always knew deep down I wanted to be doing my own thing. And I have a brother that's like, hey, let's do a Baskin Robbins, let's do a mini storage. And I'm thinking, yeah, I don't know anything about those things. I got all
Right.
this experience, I got all this expertise in the hotel world. Why don't I do something with it? And I honestly didn't know about the conference directs of the world or our competitors that this model existed. So as I started learning it, I'm like, well, this would be great.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, Jeremy, my wife, if she would join us, I mean, I came to her, I'm a vice president, doing great at Marriott, blah, blah, blah. I come to her and said, I'm going to go do this. There's no salary, there's no benefits. I've got no accounts, I've got no team, but this is going to be great. And,
Great sales
to that,
pitch. Great sales pitch there, Doug. I'm sure you won her over.
yeah, exactly. That's a great way to sell it. Huh? So,
Right.
we're still married. It has worked out really well. But, kudos to her for supporting me. But I literally, kind of jumped out of the plane without a parachute. And that's probably why, you heard me talk earlier, why I'm so focused on being a guide for people. When people reach
Yeah.
out to me now, do you want to join my team? I walk them through a process. The good, the bad. Here's what you're going to
Yeah.
get into, because I don't want people jumping out of a plane without a parachute. Like you, I believe in this, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of hard work, but I also want people to know what they're getting into. So my focus when I came to Conference Direct was different than most that come to Conference Direct. In fact, at the time, 13 years ago, I think I tipped the model upside down, because everyone came in, went and found their accounts, handled their own accounts. I came in and said, I'm going to build a team first. And so,
Nice.
it meant I needed a longer runway, right, for me to make a living, because I had to bring people in, they had to start booking, all of that. But that was really my focus. And candidly, I had some, foundation, because I had led a couple of commission sales teams, as I just told you. So, I knew how to do it. I knew where some of these people were that could come with me and be successful. And we have been. I'm lucky. I'm blessed to have just a fabulous team. More importantly than the numbers we achieve, we've built a really good culture. We help each other. We share with each other. I mean, and that's not always the norm in an independent model. So,
Yeah.
I'm really proud that we've been able to create that culture. And now, as I talk to people that want to join my team, I'm screening on how will they fit in with this. We're not going to break this great culture we have. Are you going to come in and, like you and I've been talking about, be part of the team? I
Yeah.
think, I'm a huge, whether you like Alabama or not, I'm just at awe that this Nick Saban coach can just keep that machine rolling. That tells you he's got systems and processes and a culture, and he gets people to believe in it. And
Yeah.
I think there's so many lessons to learn when you watch some of that. How, he's not a one-hit wonder. And, I think you and we don't want to be one-hit wonders. We want to build this business and we want to maintain it. And,
Yeah.
that's what we have to do. Otherwise, our clients are going to like us either. They don't want us to come in, take great care of them, and then, well, I'll see you later. I'm going to be on a year-long vacation. We got to be
So
there
true.
for them. So, but that's probably a longer answer than you thought. But
I
that's a
loved
little bit of
it.
my background of how I got to where I am today with Conference Draft.
I loved it. As you talk, I think of one of the most impactful books that I read last year. I actually listened to it on Audible. I can't even say I read it, but I've been listening to it on repeat, actually. It's Atomic Habits by James Clear. And he talks, going to this sports analogy, he talks a lot about the fact that everyone has got more or less the same goals to be successful. Like, no one starts out the beginning of the season and says, hey, I want to finish in last place. I don't want to win a Super Bowl at all or a championship, right? No one starts that way. Everyone starts saying they want to win it all. The difference between the champions and the people who don't get there are systems. Just like you said, he said, if we don't rise to our level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. Correct. And if you don't have systems in place, if you're not putting the day-to-day operating system you have in place to get to be successful, you're not going to get to your goals. And I think that's a interesting side point. You hit on the risk of starting your own thing. You talked about it in pretty plain terms, how you put it to your wife when you were thinking of joining Conference Direct. How, whether Conference Direct or not, there's a lot of people right now thinking about career shifts, being forced to think about career shifts because, the market is turned upside down and they find themselves furloughed or out of a job. How do you walk people through that risk? Because I don't think there's anything in life worth doing that doesn't involve a certain amount of risk. But, people sometimes overlook that in the push to be successful. They skip over the risk part and they get to, they see the headlines, they see the glory, they see the full bank account. but they don't think about the things that they'll have to go through to get there. As you bring people on board, as you talk to people about starting your career, or a career that's on their own, how do you talk about their risk?
Well, as I said earlier, Jeremy, I think we got to bring it right out into the forefront, right? This is you are starting your own business, so that's first of all. I spend a lot of time trying to get people to do that mind shift that you're no longer an employee, you're trying to build your own business, right? So there's got to be something in your why, something in your purpose that you want to do that. If you just had a bad day with your boss and you're calling me and it's a Friday and you want to start with me on Monday, we're not a good match, right? You're
Yeah.
just unhappy with where you are at the moment. Take a
Which
deep
could also
breath.
be a motivation, by the way, but it can't be,
Yeah,
it can't be a rash decision, right?
correct. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm definitely talking to those kind of people, but then I'm taking them through steps of, do you really want to do this? Because this is an effort. I mean, I said earlier, Baskin Robbins. I mean, if you and I started a Baskin Robbins, there's a lot of work that goes into that. You buy a franchise, you pay a lot of money for that. You got to go find the storefront. You got to build it out. We got to hire a bunch of high school kids. We've done all that, and we haven't sold anything right now. So
Right.
everybody that goes into business or tries something new, there's a lot of risk involved. And so you really try and break down, what's that runway that I got to get myself through? How am I going to get that through? Then I work with people like, okay, how do I get back to just covering all my expenses? I'm not losing money to do this thing. Okay, then how do I get back to what I was making before? Okay, then how do I get to, where's my dream? Where do I want to go? I break it into steps for people, but I know this sounds a little crazy, Jeremy, but I think right now is actually the best time to do it. When you and I did it, when I described my scenario, I'm sure yours is somewhat similar. It was huge risk because everyone else was still making money. Everyone else was still plugging along. I was the only guy without. I mean, right now, there's a lot of people sitting on the sidelines. What a great time to start something that you've always wanted to do.
Yeah.
There's not money coming in, or you can get some funding from government situations or avenues right now. Why wouldn't you be thinking about pursuing your dream? I've always wanted to write a book. I've always wanted to start a little store and furniture. What is it that you want to do? Now's the time to pursue your dreams. Mine happened to be this. Yours happens to be this, right? We
Yeah.
want to help clients, plan great meetings and events and incentive trips. But, we all have dreams. And I actually think this moment in time is an opportunity. And if you go back and look at all these books and study everything, some of the best companies started in times like these.
Of
Amazon,
course.
all these
Yeah.
companies came in a down time. And everyone says, well, you can't start anything now. Absolutely, you can. Absolutely.
You
So
know,
I really work with people on that. Just it's a new mindset, Jeremy. You're not an employee. How do I go impress my boss? No. How do I create this great business that'll change my life forever? That's what you're trying to do.
that's awesome, man. I think that mindset shift was probably the biggest. I always fancied myself an entrepreneur until I got into the space where I had to
Okay.
really be my own boss. And then the biggest attention I had to put towards my building my business was shifting my mind, the battle between
Yeah.
my ears of not being a corporate employee, but being an entrepreneur. And having made that shift, I think that's opened my mind and my eyes up to other opportunities too. You and I have both talked about, Airbnb opportunities and owning
Yeah.
properties and investing in other things. That mind shift of an entrepreneur starts to really open up windows for you to start to think of, where are some needs, what are my talents, how can my talents help fulfill some needs or fill some
Correct.
needs,
Correct.
and we make money in the process. I think that's awesome.
I think you made a
Um,
key point though, Jeremy. How do you fulfill needs? How do you help someone? How are you adding value somewhere? The money will follow, right? Do something that you love. Do something that's adding value. Do something that's offering a great service so you can get up every day and be passionate about it. The money will follow. If you sit around and wake up every day and go, well, I'm going to do this because I want to make this big amount of money, and you hate every moment you're doing it, well, the money's not going to come. So I think you just hit a huge point. Where are you adding value? Where are you helping people? Then, the success and the money will follow.
I'd even say that you might be able to find a model like that where the money does come, but if it's not making you happy and you're not fulfilled, what's the money? You can't buy happiness. You can't buy that fulfillment. And
Correct.
putting your head in your hand to something that you actually can find fulfillment, where you feel like you're contributing in ways big and small. I think that alone is worth making the step. I think to entrepreneurship, to feel fulfilled.
Absolutely.
I've
Absolutely.
given you know lots of thoughts on this, but that sometimes broken system that you work in. And again, I had no qualms with the hotel industry. I came out of with a corporate job. I had a really good career, but there were some days, man, it was hard to get out of bed. I just didn't want to, I knew what the boss was asking for me to do. I knew what was, and sometimes it was almost like morally challenging because you had to deliver a message that you personally didn't agree with. You didn't want to go ahead and deliver that news to your team who you're trying to keep motivated, and you knew it was going to deflate them 100%. Like those moments were pretty tough. So to be
Yeah.
able to kind of get up and do something that you do believe in, to take care of your clients, to fill a need that you feel passionate about and that you can feel fulfilled, I think it's worth its weight in gold, and
Absolutely.
with all the struggles and challenges that come with being on your own, I think the risk is 1,000 times worth it. I wouldn't go back and do it any other way if I could. So
I agree, and I would say, and I can only speak for myself, but I'm sure it was similar with you. I mean, what you brought up of the struggle you had about being an entrepreneur when you first started, and that's going to happen to all of us. It happened to me, and I think that's why when you asked me earlier, that's why I'm so passionate about being a guide now. I'm trying to help people get through that as quickly as possible, get through that runway of pain, and let me guide you through that. And I know you do the same, but it's going to happen to all of us. It is, I was a 20-year corporate employee. I grew up. My father was a 48-year-old working for the same company for 48
wow,
years. In my
wow,
mind, you didn't, like, when I called them, I think that discussion was harder than with my wife. When I called them, you didn't leave the company. What are you doing? And I was like, well, I am.
yeah,
So, but yeah, I mean, we're going to go through all of that. And that's why, I try to be the mentor, coach, guide, but I also encourage people, and you're great at it. You share with all of us all the time, which I appreciate. Search out for other mentors, and
yeah,
the podcast you're listening to, in my mind, that person becomes a mentor. I've never met them,
yeah,
they've never met me, but Tony Robbins is a mentor to me, or
yeah.
those folks you're learning from, and you got to seek out that. And I would do that in the corporate world. I don't think I did. I relied too much on the internal, you know and I wish, if I would go back to the corporate world, I would do that differently. I'd be the same as I am now, constantly trying to reach out to entrepreneurs, learn, grow. But you and I are forced to do that in this model, but I love it. You learn so many new things. I mean, I got
Well,
introduced to a guy, a hospitality expert in London yesterday.
no kidding.
Who would ever thought? And it was just because he's passionate about something, I'm passionate about something, and one of our mutual connections said, well, you got to talk to this guy. And the next thing you know, you're having a great conversation, about someone that's just passionate about our industry, based in London. It's just, the world is so small and so exciting right now, but you got to put yourself out there.
No doubt. No doubt. I want to make one more point before we move on from this topic. You talk about learning things, and I want to talk about that for a second. But as we mentioned, some of the best companies or some of the most iconic brands that we know were often founded in the middle of times of tribulation. One of the biggest excuses I find for people not wanting to jump out of the corporate world and do their own thing is the steady salary, it's the steady paycheck, it's what I call the golden handcuffs. It's really a trap, but there's a pretty enough trap that you really don't want to break free of it, right? You're stuck there. When we are in times of transition, that gets eliminated. When you no longer have that steady paycheck coming in anyway because you've been furloughed or you've been fired, right? That kind of removes the excuse. I'd encourage you, if you're listening now and you're watching what Doug and I have gone through, don't wait for that moment to come. If you're really passionate about that, start to map out your plan now for how you want to live your life, whether that be with conference director or any industry, whatever you want to do. Maybe you want to sell ice cream on the side of the street, like a Baskin Robbins or whatever. Let that be. Start planning that now and not wait for what is your plan in place to get to that spot where you're going to be fulfilled and happy, and not let the golden handcuffs dictate how you're going to live your life on a daily basis. But anyway, that's my go.
Jeremy, you bring up a great point. Sorry to interrupt you there. I had a good friend of mine, and it was probably 3 or 4 years into this of my 13 years, and he pulled me aside. I won't say his name because he's still out there. He's probably a well-known guy that people would know. He said to me, he goes, man, he goes, I always thought you were crazy and you were this risk taker and all that. And he goes, I've realized you are actually have less risk than me. He said,
Hey,
they can come down the hall anytime, knock on the door and tell me I got to go. And he goes, I'll get some severance and maybe I've got 30 weeks of pay or whatever, but then I'm done. I'm at zero. And he goes, you have this, you've built this book of business and you've got these accounts and you've got bookings out in the future and you've got commissions coming in. He goes, you're more secure than I am. And I'll be honest with you, Jeremy, it was the first time I really thought of it. And it's been great for what we've been going through. It hasn't been easy on us. Obviously, our industry's just been literally shut down, since last March. But we have a model that did protect us for a period of time. We've obviously been able to shift to selling other things like virtual and hybrid and these things. So again, some of my friends are 100% sitting on the sideline. They're furloughed. They're waiting for the phone to ring to go back. You and I haven't had that. We're moving forward. We're working with our clients. We're helping them. And, so it's funny because I always thought, yeah, this is a risky, but you know what? It is risky in that window of getting ramped up. Once you're ramped up, this career is less risky than a typical corporate job. And that was
Doug,
an aha moment for me when he shared that with me.
that is so awesome. I could talk for half an hour on this. In fact, I'm doing a series of videos about why I left the corporate world in the first place. And one of them, I've already recorded this. I'm just editing it. It's about risk and the assumption of risk. When I was leaving, I left, I would probably say the height of my career, my best job I ever had in the corporate world. I was very, very happy where I was. And I started to share with people, that I'm leaving. And that was one of the first things they said, my God, it's so risky. And my response to them ended up becoming, after I had several back and forths with some people that I really respected and admired and kind of thought through it myself and answered their concerns, was if you think it's risky to leave, it's just as risky to stay. Correct. I worked for Starwood at the time. The forget about the daily, potential purchase of a hotel where they sweep out the management team and bring in their own people, or a shifting of a brand from, goes from, switches flags from Intercontinental to Marriott or whatever, right? Look, Starwood was bought by Marriott. All the people that were telling me how risky my job was, or I should say leaving was, were 2 years later, 3 years later, fighting to even see if they had a job with this new corporate takeover. So just like you said, there's risk on all sides. And I'd much rather assume the risk for myself than wait for Mr. Corporation to tell me the risk, that I'm a risk to them for whatever reason, and they're going to let me go. Do you know what I'm saying? That risk is not mine to assume. It's their risk. When you become an entrepreneur, you assume that risk for yourself. And I'll also tell you this, when transition comes, when times of tribulation comes, like we've seen in 2020 and continuing into 21, I think our mindset that we had just talked about earlier, shifting from the corporate mindset of do what you're told and kind of file the reports and do everything that corporate's expecting you, because we've shifted to an entrepreneurial mindset, we are a lot more fluid to go with the flow. We understand what change is like. We know what it's like to struggle through good years and bad years. So I think we're all the more able to adapt when the ebbs and flow of life that eventually come. It's you can't change those things. When they come, we're more prepared to deal with that because we've kind of shifted to that mentality. It doesn't make it easy, like you said, and I don't want to paint this panacea of somehow we've got it all figured out. But that a lot of the battles, like I had mentioned earlier, are fought between your ears. And if you've already learned how to fight those battles in an entrepreneurial space, when challenging times come, you're much more able to make that shift and meet the challenge as they come.
I agree. What you said a minute ago, Jeremy, is probably the biggest. If there's just one takeaway for people to do it, it's prepare for that future. You said earlier, it doesn't matter if you're at a corporation, whatever you're doing. Have a plan. What's your future look like? Have steps there. Have protections. Shame on all of us if something like this would ever happen again and we're not prepared for it. And you and I, we're diversifying. We're trying new things. You have to do different things. You do if you work for a company too. I hope people learned. You can't just sit back and go, my father worked for the utility company and the utility was never going away. Well, he was fortunate in his, lifespan. It did not go away, but that's not, the world has changed now. It's very competitive. You mentioned there's acquisitions, all that kind of stuff. So, you have to be prepared with ideas and game plans and, investing in other things, have other things going on, having it right between your two ears mentally. And I have a gentleman I just got to meet through networking and everything, 30-year guy with a hotel chain, and, got pushed aside. And man, he is the most refreshing guy. He keeps telling me, you know what? It didn't happen to me. It happened for me. He goes, this was the wake-up call I needed. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, hearing that, it didn't happen to me. It happened for me so that I could go off and do something and re-energize and make something. I thought that's amazing because, most of his counterparts are sitting around like, oh man, I can't believe they did that to me. They've been doing that for months and months. There's, I think there's more, but there's, to over simplify, there's two people right now, right? There's the people laying on the couch, pulling the blanket over the head going, oh my gosh, when's this going to be over? And there's people out there busting their butt that even though the rewards aren't there that they normally are, where the activity is going to pay off. You can't just hide under a blanket. We still got to move forward, and that's why I love his. It didn't happen to me; it happened for me. I just think that's brilliant.
That's fantastic, man. And it goes back to that point too. How are you investing your time? Whatever situation you find yourself in life right now, it's not just about trying to get after that money. It's about managing your time. How are you investing all of your resources? What kind of knowledge have you acquired, and how can you translate that into something that's not only fulfilling but could potentially lead to another opportunity for you? So
Correct.
that's awesome.
Absolutely.
What a great perspective on life. You mentioned, Doug, about things that podcasts and stuff, things you've learned. Tell me something you've either recently picked up or a go-to for you through the years that you go back to. Share something that challenges you to learn in new and different ways.
Yeah, I've always been a big, motivational type, searching for it. Back 100 years ago, you were listening to Covey and Zig Ziglar and all these, folks. I think, the last
On
time I
your
moved, I think I,
8-track player, Doug, in your
oh
car,
God, I
is that
think
what
I
it
just got
was?
rid of some of those cassette tapes and stuff. And my my daughters are like, "What are those?" And I'm like, whatever. You don't want to get into all those stories with my kids, but I've always believed, and I honestly, Jeremy, I can't put my finger on it. Somebody somewhere must have tapped me on the shoulder, given me that advice. But I've always been searching for, um, mentors, for coaches, for ideas. You mentioned Brian Ritchie earlier. I love his philosophy. Anytime, if I join a talk that I'm listening to you with, or whatever, I just want, if I could get one or two takeaways, man,
Yeah.
that's huge. And I usually always do. And so, it's, I'm always searching for new things. I've got my steady ones I go to, but for our industry right now, I'm doing a lot of homework on the real estate industry. I think it's a very similar model. I think they've got some cool things figured out. I mean, obviously, it comes from some of the coaching that I've had and still have, and who is part of writing The One Thing, which really is a Keller Williams real estate. But I love that philosophy because that's me. Sometimes I'll have 20 things I'm trying to do, and I got to remember, all right, if I just do this one thing today, if I just get this main thing done, my day will be a success. Now, that doesn't mean I do that one thing and then go golfing all day, but you got to get yourself focused and all that. So I am constantly searching for motivation. I'll have to send it to you afterwards. I can't remember the gentleman's name. I just got it last night at a podcast, and he's all about how we're going to win in 2021. It's all about building momentum, because you got to, momentum.
Yeah.
We got to initially get out there and do the activity. Then we got to gain more momentum, and then we got to maintain our momentum. But I think that connected with me because it's back to that sports thing. Like in a game,
Yeah.
you got to come out fast, and we're gonna set the pace here. So I think you always got to be searching for those things to learn from others. There's a book called The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, and again, I actually don't like the name, but what it actually is brilliant. They took what are the best practices of the
Hmm.
top producing agents, and they just kind of interviewed and talked with them. And to me, in our world, Jeremy, I wish we could get together the best of the best and like what
Yeah.
makes you work. And I'll tell you, again, I was lucky. The first time I was a director of sales of a convention network hotel within Marriott, so the larger convention hotels, I picked up the phone and called all my counterparts of those size hotels, and asked them, like, talk to me. What forms do you use? What do? You have reps every week, and every one of them. I think at that time there was like 12, 15 hotels I talked to. None of them had ever received a call like that. And I'm like,
Wow.
that made the most sense in the world to me. Why wouldn't I learn from the people already doing it?
Of
And
course.
again, and then from there, I knew what style I was going to be already, and a lot of my stuff. But man, I learned some great tips and tricks and tools and resources. Why not? You don't have to be like, oh, I had to have the idea. It had to come from me. I've implemented great ideas that you've shared with me, Jeremy. That's the way this works. That's how we're going to be successful. So, whether you love podcasts, reading books, listening to books online, going back to the cassette tapes, whatever it is, I would definitely encourage you to be constantly learning. And especially right now, we've just been thrown a curveball. We need to
Yeah.
learn new things. We need to
Yeah.
adapt. You don't do that if you're still stuck in 1998 trying to do things. It's changed, right? And we got to
Yeah.
change with it.
success leaves breadcrumbs. And I think if you follow the path of other people and where they've been successful, like you said, there's no ego in success. And when I was a director of sales and marketing, there are some people who have the philosophy they want to be the smartest person in the room. They want to be able to tell everyone what to do. I had the opposite approach. I wanted to surround myself with people that were smarter than me. And if I could keep them motivated and trained, that would only elevate the entire boat that we were on. And that idea that you're constantly seeking out different perspectives and different ways of seeing things, I think is key.
That's
Um,
a great point, Jeremy. And you and I are very alike then, because and you are familiar with some of my team with Conference Direct, and people are always like, "Well, how do you have such a great team?" Because they're all better sales people than I ever was on my best day, right?
yeah,
I went out and found the best of the best. I don't want to be in that room and say, "Well, here's how I used to do it."
yeah,
These folks are far better than me, and that's what you want. I mean,
yeah,
you've seen it with successful leaders, when they think they have to be the smartest person in the room and they have to be in charge, things don't go well. When they're willing to surround themselves with the best talent, at the end of the day, they're going to get the credit or they're going to get the blame, right? But
yeah.
bring in the best people and don't worry about all that. But I love your philosophy. I do not want to be the smartest person in the room. But
Absolutely. Well, that
I
won't
love
happen
being in a
anytime
room with
soon,
smart
Doug. Don't worry about it.
people.
That won't happen with you. You're fine. You're safe.
Woohoo!
I'm kidding, buddy. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I love it. I love it.
Listen, talking about 2021, let's start to wrap this up here. You talked about goals and something you mentioned about momentum and building momentum. I'm a big fan of energy, begetting more energy, but larger approaches to 2021. I think sometimes people magically think by shifting a year, suddenly everything's going to be better. People couldn't wait to get out of 2020. Nothing magical happened on January 1st, 2021 to make some of the issues that we're facing as a society with the pandemic, with our business, everything. But I guess what lessons you have as you brace for what's ahead of us in 2021? How are you confronting that? What goals you have? Anything you want to say about what you're doing to prepare for the year to come?
Well, I love the fact that you threw out the word goals. I think I'm a huge goal fan. I mean, I have an actual document. I'm fortunate. I actually work with a business coach. The business coach I work with is very adamant, kind of on a one page. Mine happens to be a page and a half. But the bottom line is it needs to be simple, but you need to have something. And I encourage all of my team always, I mean, have that format. In our model, we don't have a set one. You have to use this or you have to do that. But yeah, even if it's written on a napkin, have your goals. If you don't know where you're going, you'll definitely get there, right? So I
True.
mean, like we have to know where we're going. If you're doing a trip to California, you're going to have those. Hey, we just crossed the line. We're in Ohio. Hey, we made it to Texas. You'll have those stopping points, and that's what you need with goals because. Going back to the sports analogy, we're also in our mind and in keeping score. How are we doing? What are we doing?
Yeah.
So I think this year I'm actually very encouraged. I mean, I know we're still in a bad spot, but I believe, now there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I know we're still trying to figure out, is it 3 months down the road? Is it 6 months down the road? I know we don't know where the end is, but we can see a light. I think there's a lot of things that are getting checked off that, we may call as excuses, right? I mean, the election is behind us. Soon, the new administration will be in, the vaccine's being rolled out, all those kind of things. We're still facing unrest and all that. But you've got to observe that from a professional standpoint and say, huh, well, what businesses were successful during all this time? Well, should I be more connected with them? Should I be trying to do business with them? Should I be involved with some of those businesses? What business do you think are going to come back quickly? Are you paying attention? What businesses are going to be involved in this vaccine rollout? How are schools going to be functioning when they're different? I mean, look at what we're doing. We didn't. I'd never even heard of Zoom. Last
Yeah.
March before this happened, right? So the
Facts.
technology that we're using isn't just going to go away. When
Yeah.
face-to-face meetings come back, and they will, this kind of stuff isn't going to go away. I think some of the stuff that will be impacted is some of these small business trips. If there was 5 of us team directors that were going to get together, we might go, you know what, let's just set up a Zoom and let's do that.
Yeah.
So I think some of those things will change, but I would encourage people to be right now building. I'm huge on momentum. That's what I'm preaching to my team. Let's get out of the gates fast. The end of the year is going to be good. This is going to be a positive year, but it's going to be dependent on the activity we're putting in now, the attitude we have now, and I also think I'm preaching what you mentioned earlier, Jeremy. I'm preaching, make sure your business is diversified, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we used to talk about in the hotels, don't have all, don't just be association or don't just be corporate. It's bigger than that. Not only is your book of business in our little world, but also, when the money you are making, where are you putting that? How's that working for you? Diversify so that if something like this happens again, it's not all sitting in one thing, and you're able to get through it. And me personally, I've been involved in some investments of startup companies, so that has helped me. I mean, I
Awesome.
did it years ago. Like you, I'm involved in real estate investing, which I think is great, and rentals from that. And I've gotten involved in and helping guests now stay in luxury homes. So luxury homes is kind of exploding. It's still in the travel industry. So these travelers that are probably a little more high net worth, that are looking for those luxury experiences. I'm involved in doing some of that. And for me, I'm not going to sit here and go, oh, well, this isn't going to affect me. In 2021, I'll be fine. No, we all got to be constantly, reinventing ourselves almost. And, I know there's a lot of overused words, and, pivot and reinvent and all that are probably the most used. Well, I guess the most used is actually you're on mute, but but I think it's, just learn the lessons. And the last thing I would say about that, though, Jeremy, is don't look back, right? The past is the past,
Yeah.
right? It was bad. It was
Yeah.
bad, but we can't keep talking about it. It is behind us. There's nothing we can do about it. How do we move forward now? Every day is one day closer to more people being vaccinated. Every day is one day closer to us, getting our businesses rolling again. And that's the way you have to approach it, and not
Yeah.
keep going, oh man, I can't believe what happened to us. Yeah, well, it happened to a lot of people. The hospitality industry was hit hard, but so were a lot of other people. And
Yeah.
so you got to be resilient. You got to have a positive attitude, and I think make sure you got some diversity in your business, from who you're working with, what you're working on, where your investments are, all that kind of stuff.
Awesome stuff, Doug. I'd say think about Jeff Bezos if he had only stopped and said, I'm a book guy, and didn't think about how to expand beyond, Amazon selling books. I'm not a massive fan of Jeff Bezos and how he does business. I think he could be a lot kinder to his employees. That's a whole nother conversation. But the bottom line is, he had a vision for much, he could have stopped at selling books online, and that would have been he was very successful in doing that, but he had a mind to diversify. You think of Musk, you think of Gates, you think of all these other great business minds. They didn't just get to, okay, I'm going to make a computer and then I'm going to stop there. They had a much bigger vision for how to continue to evolve and expand. And
that's your second great takeaway right there, Jeremy. I think you just said, have a roadmap for the future. I mean, I'm always blown away at Amazon. I agree with you, not necessarily the person, but they just blow something out of the water, and then there's like 3 more ideas coming behind it. So there must be a room with, here's what we're going to do for the next 20 years, and everyone's like, wow, that's great. Well, why aren't we doing that for ourselves?
1,000%,
I'm
man.
Doug Inc. Why am I not mapping out what's the next 5 years look like, and what am I going to do? And so the two you just mentioned of, Amazon and Tesla with Musk and Bezos. I mean, whether you like them or not, you got to give them credit. Back
Of
to,
course.
if you like Nick Saban or not, or Alabama, 7 championships is pretty impressive, right?
Of
So,
course.
to me, I'm going to go study how that guy's doing that, whether I like
Follow
him
the
or not.
breadcrumbs. Follow the breadcrumbs to success, right?
I like that. Follow the breadcrumbs.
I will wrap up, and I think as we're talking, Doug, the thing that keeps coming back in my mind is we're here to solve problems. I remember talking to my team when I was leading teams, and now with Conference Direct, I have the same message to my team. It was a little easier to kind of parallel this in the hotel world, because every day there'd be some kind of crazy client or some crazy guest or whatever that we'd have to deal with, right? And I would tell my team all the time, guys, wake up every day and prepare for a crisis. Like, in your mind, mentally be there and say, the crisis is going to hit my desk. And what does that do? One, it helps you, let's say you don't get as shocked by the fact that the crisis hit, because you expected it. You knew this was going to happen. You knew you were going to have a crazy guest come. You knew there was going to be something there. So when it comes, it's like, oh, I already mentally prepared for the fact that this person is going to be here. You're already one step closer to overcoming the shock of it and solving the problem, finding a way to find a resolution for this person. The second thing it does, I think it builds job security, right? If things and problems resolve themselves, it wouldn't need people like us to help them resolve. With in conference direct in our model, I don't care what model you're in. If you are an entrepreneur, if you're doing something, if you're a manager in any place, you're being paid to help solve problems. And sometimes I think we get offended there's a problem, we get thrown off by there's a problem. There's something that you know change comes and we just
Yeah.
don't we're not mentally prepared for it, when the bottom line is that's what we do. We manage through change. We manage and help our clients when we have curveballs and things that don't necessarily go our way. That's what we should almost be kind of going back to your point about your buddy there that said it didn't happen to me, it happened for me. What if we took this entire pandemic and said the same exact thing? It didn't happen to me, it happened for me. This is an opportunity for me to show my worth. I have a feeling, and I could be foolish about this, I could be being unnecessarily bullish, but people who can solve problems like we do for our clients are going to be even in more high demand when the dust settles after this entire pandemic, because
Absolutely.
the landscape has entirely changed, and our
That's right.
ability to adapt, our ability to find solutions, our ability to roll with the punches and say, okay, that didn't work, we got to figure out something new, as opposed to just being stuck in, well, this is the way it's always been, this is the way it has to be, what are we going to do? That ability to be flexible and to change, I think, is going to be one of our biggest strengths. Like you talked about earlier, Doug, if you haven't started thinking about doing something for yourself, about diversifying, about looking for a new way, there's not a better time as far as I'm concerned than to really manage that risk on your own, and stop waiting for someone else to tell you what to do with your life.
Yeah. Well, what you said too, Jeremy, I mean, you can wake up scared or you can wake up excited. I think you and
Yeah,
I'm guessing, are both of the ones that wake up excited, right? I mean, the challenge for you and I right now is we are those, to our customers, we're the trusted advisor consultant. They're coming to us going, hey, what do we do in this mad industry that's going on right now? How do we best, navigate this? They're coming to us. Our team is coming to us and saying, hey, how do I do this? So, this is where, and we're seeing it play out in public. This is where strong leaders rise and other leaders not so much. So, this is the moment of truth, and I'm excited about it. I definitely have people I know that are scared to death of it right now, and I'm not
yeah,
saying I'm not nervous or scared. This is overwhelming. I'm not, but I'm excited that I'm going to find a way through it. I'm going to learn what I need to learn. That's the approach you got to take, and you've said it many times through this conversation, which I really appreciate. But yeah, you know what, you can say this is a bad time or it's a great time, and the quote I gave you, I would say the key there too is find those people. I have
yeah,
found and surrounded myself with positive people. I will tell you,
yeah,
yesterday I had a few people that were the downers on the phone. I'm talking to them and I hung up, and I went to lunch with my wife and I'm like, phew, I'm not too excited about talking to that person again. So I'm
yeah.
seeking out people like you, Jeremy. I want to talk to people that are, hey, this is bad, yeah, but we're going to find a way through this, and here's what we're going to do, and let's talk about it, and let's stay positive. That's what I'm searching for, and I would encourage everyone, if there's negative people, they need to go away for right now. You don't need negative people around you. You need positive people around you right now.
1,000%. It's not a denial that there's problems. It's not a denial that there's challenges. It's the acceptance of that and the willful determination to push through those challenges to find solutions. I think that's
Absolutely.
what
Yeah,
you're
I'm
you're
not
keying
denying
in on.
anything, and
So
I'm not a Pollyanna. I'm just a very positive person. I mean, as we speak, I'm sitting in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. There's a lot of madness going on in this area, but
yeah,
again, when we look back, what can we learn from it? What should have been done? What are we doing right now? Again, you can sit around and complain, or we can all stand up and do something about it. And, you and I as leaders, you and I helping our customers, I think this is the time for all of us to come together, and not to get too broad, but I think at a higher level, we all need to come together right now, right? We got to help
yeah,
each other. You mentioned it earlier in this conversation, Jeremy, which I really appreciate. This is about giving back. This is the time
yeah,
to give back, like on the football field, when that guy knocked you down and made a heck of a tackle. Nowadays you see a lot of these showboats and they get up and do stuff. Man, in my day, you picked up that guy off the and said, "Hey, man, nice hit." I want to
yeah,
beat that guy. I still want to win the game, but I appreciate a good moment. We're out
yeah.
here being, and this is the time to pick up someone you don't agree with. Maybe you got different philosophies. Hey, reach your hand out. Let's help each other, because that's how we're going to get through this right now, in my oversimplified opinion.
I think it couldn't be more profound than what you just said, Doug. It's as simple as it is. it's as profound as it can be. The ability to invest not necessarily money, but our time, our energy, our knowledge, and invest in relationships that whether there's ever a big payoff or not, whether it's going to lead to a client relationship, whatever, the value in giving itself is worth doing it just by itself. Just invest, give back what
Absolutely.
you can. I couldn't think of a better way to end the call, Doug. This has been an awesome coffee with colleagues.
I
It
got to
might
go
not be
back
the
to my
last,
coffee.
man.
Trust
You
me,
do well.
my wife is telling me to get back to the coffee too. So, I will be back drinking coffee very soon. So
That's actually motivation for me to invite you back here. When you're back to
oh, there we
coffee,
go. Yeah.
we can have another conversation and have an official coffee with colleagues, man.
Yeah, that's the only thing with stranded in your office is too much. I started drinking too much coffee, then I'm like, all right, you gotta slow down some things. So I'm doing good habits right now. So
I
a little
love it. I
cleansing,
love it.
right? Well,
That's
thank
what
you
it's.
for the time, man. I appreciate it. I always love being around you, Jeremy. You lift me up, and a lot of your counterparts throughout Conference Direct as well. So I love that you're doing things like this, and thank you for your efforts. You're giving back by doing this. So thank you.
Man, I appreciate the kind words. Thanks so much, Doug. Be well. Good luck with you in 2021. I'm sure we'll be back in touch soon. Those of you listening, reach out to Doug, reach out to me if we can ever help you out with anything. I'm talking business, I'm talking personal. I know it comes from my heart, and I'm sure Doug will feel the same way. If we can ever help you out if you're in a tough spot, don't hesitate to call. So with that, guys, we're going to end it. Have a great afternoon, and wherever you're listening, be good to each other. Take care.